This time is that on the day of the incident, he had picked up some food and was on his way to deliver the food to his Bible study group.
So far, there is nothing to suggest that terrorism was involved. The BART Board of Directors has unanimously approved a new policy that allows for the use of some automated license plate readers in a few BART parking lots. Police say it will help them recover stolen vehicles and will also serve as a deterrent. Quarantine orders have been issued at UCLA and Cal State Los Angeles to prevent the spread of measles. Dr. Adrian Cotton is with Loma Linda University Health.
So there's a group now that don't have the vaccination rate that they did 15, 20 years ago.
UCLA says 127 students and faculty are being held while they await medical records to determine if they're immune to measles. Steve Clausen, California News.
Change can happen when you choose it. You can choose treatment and change your addiction to opioids. Medication-assisted treatment, or MAT, is a proven treatment for opioid addiction that significantly reduces the rate of relapse. Covered by Medi-Cal, Medicare, and many private insurance plans, MAT is even available through primary care doctors. Choose a proven treatment option that's right for you. Learn more at choosemat.org and choose Change, California.
In the front, we'll take out that tree, install a new fence.
You're gonna call 811, right?
Isn't that just for excavators?
No, dude. Calling 811 is for excavators, homeowners, contractors, anyone. Natural gas lines and other utilities can be buried anywhere. Call 811 2 working days before any digging project to get all underground lines marked for free.
Thanks, deep-voiced narrator.
You're welcome, dude. Brought to you by Southwest Gas.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Joe Biden says he asked former President Obama not to endorse him because the Democratic candidate should win the nomination based on merit. Speaking today at the Amtrak station in Delaware, the former VP said it will be up to Democrats to decide if he's the best choice to beat President Trump. The president took a jab at Biden.
I've known Joe over the years. He's not the brightest light bulb in the group, I don't think, but he has a name that they know.
Trump made the remark during an interview on Fox News' Sean Hannity show tonight. Federal prosecutors plan to appeal if a judge orders the release of a U.S. Coast Guard officer accused of plotting a terrorist attack. A federal judge in Maryland said he will free Lieutenant Christopher Hassan on bail if the defense can propose suitable conditions for his release. Hassan was charged with gun and drug offenses, but his lawyers asked him to be freed until his trial because he wasn't charged with any terrorism-related counts. Heisman Trophy winner Kyler Murray is the top pick in the 2019 NFL Draft. The Arizona Cardinals took the Oklahoma quarterback first overall at the draft in Nashville. The San Francisco 49ers then selected Ohio State defensive end Nick Bosa, number 2. The Sri Lankan government is revising the death toll from the series of suicide bombings on Easter Sunday.
The Sri Lankan Health Ministry lowered the number of those killed to 253, which is more than 100 less than the previous death toll of 359. A ministry official says it is difficult to make accurate identifications as the blasts damaged some of the remains beyond recognition. Several agencies are investigating the local Muslim extremists believed to have coordinated the attacks on Sri Lankan churches and hotels. Tom Roberts, NBC News Radio.
The Boston Celtics are mourning the loss of Hall of Famer John Havlicek. The team announced he passed away at the age of 79 in Jupiter, Florida. Havlicek spent 16 seasons in Boston. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us if you want Viagra at the lowest prices. Never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 800-357-1583 today to save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 800-357-1583 to take your call now. Call 800-357-1583. That's 800-357-1583. Again, 800-357-1583.
This is KCAA.
Are you ready for a new experience? To see life from another point of view? New hope, new expression, new joy. This is your radio hour. Welcome to Viewpoint with Father John.
And welcome. You are tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reid. By the way, you can follow Viewpoint by just going to Facebook and Instagram. Go to Viewpoint with Father John, and you can click on either one to become part of our family. I hope you will. And this is also a listener-supported program, so please go to our website at www.viewpointwithfatherjohn.com and press on the support button, and you can help support us. All of God's children are endowed with extraordinary purpose and ability. I'm on the quest to help as many as possible in fully realizing their divinely inspired potential. Disposing of false narrative and embracing genuineness inspires clarity of purpose. My role is to help overcome self-imposed limitations in realizing one's spiritual potential. And little news tonight before we get on with our guest, that is we have a new sound engineer, and that's Frank. Frank, welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. And he's over here in the booth.
It's great to meet you finally, Father John.
Nice to meet you as well. And in the booth with him is our dear friend Nick, who this is his last week with us.
I think we need to give this microphone the blue pill.
Yes, I do. That way it comes up better. And so, welcome aboard, Frank. Glad you're on board with us. Nick, we're going to miss you greatly. You've been a fantastic operator.
I'm going to miss you too.
Well, thank you for that. If you want to see our wedding photos, you have to go online to our Facebook thing. I'm going to pay for that later. As I was saying earlier, brothers and sisters, Viewpoint is a listener-supported show. You are the ones who keep us on the air. So please go to viewpointwithfatherjohn.com and click the support button. Also, I'd like to invite you to buy a copy of my book, Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me. The premise of this book is that all of us are God's children and that we do not need more self-improvement. Rather, we need self-discovery. Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me is available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and many other online bookstores. Get your copy today. I'm having trouble with my rented lips tonight. And tonight, I'm really happy to share with you that my guest is Dr. Melanie Keller. She's a doctor of naturopathic medicine. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's a really specialized area that I'm very interested in. Now, she received her medical degree from the National University of Natural Medicine, NUNM, in Portland, Oregon. Her education included postgraduate training in small intestine bacterial overgrowth, and a common cause for irritable bowel syndrome, I thought that was marriage, and hormones and nutrigenics and environmental toxins. Doctor, welcome aboard. And I know that you also have a practice in Los Angeles, California, where you see patients both in person and virtually. Boy, I'm just having trouble tonight. Doc, maybe you can help me with something for that. How are you this evening?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And I'm really glad that you're on the show because I think naturopathic medicine is one of the best kept secrets in America, and yet it's such a powerful science. So what drew you to becoming an ND?
Well, that was part of my own health journey. I was going to many, trying to be up on my health and going to my annual physicals and getting my eyes checked and my feet, everything that my insurance would pay for.
Right.
And yet I wasn't a healthy person. I mean, I was doing my best, but I was significantly overweight, and I was even going to medical centers trying, like weight loss clinics, and
yes,
they would run my blood work, and they would kind of look at my blood work would look really good, but they would put me on the scale, and then I would even have to tell the nurses, like, oh, you have to go up one more notch, how the thing is on the. And they would kind of look at what I look like physically and say, no. And I'd say, no, really, you have to go up a whole nother, thing. And that was my life even as a child. I always weighed heavier than I actually looked. And what's interesting is that even as I was going to doctors and saying, look, there's something going on here, I found myself in this position of what they call irritable bowel syndrome, which is we don't exactly know what's wrong with you. And we can't figure it out, and it's now become what they call a diagnosis of exclusion, which means it costs our medical community like a lot of money. It can cost someone tens of thousands of dollars to still not get help, unfortunately.
Yes, a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, and so that's this whole, well, we don't, and then there's also a stigma on it being more common. I mean, it is true, but it's more common in females. And so therefore, maybe it's in your head. And so oftentimes people may even get sent to psychiatric, because they just say, look, we've run all of these tests and we cannot find something pathological, or organically wrong with this person.
I just for a second, I know I'm interrupting you, but the other thing they often do, in addition to say it's in their head, they also will often say, well, maybe you're depressed. And that's the answer for everything. I know I deal with a couple of autoimmune issues, and one of the things I was told by a rheumatologist is, well, maybe you're just depressed and that intensifies the pain. Did you ever get anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the number one things that they'll give people for IBS is an antidepressant. And it's like, well, why wouldn't that be somewhat depressing if I'm going to you, I've spent thousands of dollars, and you're just kind of saying there's nothing you can do for me. And it's really this disease of an industrialized country even, where it's like we look like we have this great life, right? Because I've also done relief work in Nicaragua, where, it's like all of a sudden I'm looking at keeping my mouth closed when I'm showering and, wearing suits everywhere. But, that's a very human experience that I got to enjoy.
Very good. Well, that's something else. And I think that's important for our listeners to hear tonight, because I'm sure there's a number of them who've also been quite frustrated with some of the medical practice that they've received. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some really good MDs and DOs out there. I'll be honest, I prefer DOs. And when they don't know what to say, they blame the patient. And that's even more frustrating for the patient going through all this. And the only reason I knew about naturopathic medicine was my whole vocation. I've been a medical missionary, and part of our order of priests was hooked up with Whitaker Wellness Institute, which maybe can do something with my stuttering. And they were using NDs, and that was the first time I had heard of that. And so I started investigating it, and I almost went to school for it myself because I was so impressed, because your training is on par with a medical doctor. The only reason I didn't go for it, because I thought about going to Cleveland College, was the fact that I don't have a strong enough biology background. And I wasn't willing to go get another bachelor's degree to start all over, since I already went all the way to my PhD. So it's
of course.
And I'll be honest, I knew I couldn't pass the math. The math would have been awful.
Yeah, no, I understand. I had a different degree. I had to go back in organic chemistry and physics. Take those basic sciences to get into school. Yep, I can appreciate that. I was a non-traditional student for sure.
What do you think of probiotics? I know it's kind of out of the left field there, but that's the big thing right now.
Probiotics? You just mean with the probiotics question?
Yes.
Oh boy, you're going to get a very unique answer. I don't want to say that I'm anti-probiotic. I'm just saying that people are extrapolating the evidence. And so what I know and what I follow is evidence-based medicine. Even, as a naturopath, I just know, and this is as of recent, current data from the American College of Gastroenterology, there's no studies that show that probiotics are helpful in irritable bowel syndrome specifically. And they've even now expanded the guidelines to say do not take a probiotic along with an antibiotic, even your broad-spectrum sinusitis, broad-spectrum antibiotic. They're even, so there's been big shifts. So things happen that patterns that happen where we get really excited about something for about 10 years, and then we go, wait a minute, maybe we should have, let's think about that.
That's been a question I've had for a long time. That's why I'm glad you're saying this, because I can remember when it got to be a really big deal and everybody was doing probiotics, and Dr. Oz was talking about it on his program. And there's always that part of me, I have just enough medical training to be dangerous, not helpful, but I had enough to have a lot of questions about all the, hoopla that we're getting about the probiotics, because I thought, with my limited education in this, it doesn't correlate. And I thought, I think it may do some good, but I don't think it's a wonder that everyone is making it out to be. So I'm glad to get your input on that. Now, what sort of things would
I think that
go ahead.
From previous cultures, and when people say, "Oh, in Bulgaria," it was like, well, that was a unique time and place and environment at that time. We are in 2018 doing the having kombucha, and then like probiotics all day, and then yogurt, and then and probiotics that $70 a bottle on. I say absolutely not. I recommend people stop taking all fermented food and all probiotics immediately, because I treat a condition that is intestinal overgrowth of probiotics. I say, let's start there. What do you say?
Well, I'm going to have you go back in just a minute, a little bit, because the phone was going in and out a little bit, and we were not able to catch everything you said. You said something about the fact that someone had growth in their intestines from the probiotics. Is that what you're saying?
We're doing the relief work in the whole country. We have more exposures to infections, or we can give the example of going to a wedding. We have 100 people have had the chicken that was contaminated with salmonella, 10 of these people will develop what we call antibodies, which can then trigger our immune system to see something as itself and go, oh no, let's attack that. Yeah, that's an autoimmune condition, right?
Right.
So what we now know, and this took the Cedars-Sinai team of Dr. Mark Pimentel and his now math program at Cedars-Sinai, 8 years to develop this now blood test that we have that looks to see if you had that chicken at the wedding. Because people will say, well, my spouse or my sister, they didn't get ill. And I'll say, out of those 100 people, only 10 people will develop these antibodies. Now, there's a blood test to check for this, because all of the top bacterial reasons why we would have like a gastroenteritis, right? Like, oh, did I get it from the fourth? And it's a big word, but it's called cytolethal descending toxin B. Dun, dun, dun. But that our body can have a cross reaction to, and that will affect our motor complex nerve of this cleaning wave, and it's called the migrating motor complex. So when our stomach empties, everything should be absorbed properly. All of our nutrients, our neurotransmitters, hence those antidepressants being recommended, all of that happens in the small intestine.
Right.
There's a certain time frame, and that's in between meals and during sleep, is when this migrating motor complex, it's this big wave that happens to that, make sure everybody gets whooshed on down to the large intestine, where we should have our bacteria. That's helpful for us in our large intestine.
Right.
But our small intestine should just have not very much going on. There's a certain percent, a certain amount that's deemed okay. Right. Well, when it goes over that amount, some people, when that
it sounds like we lost our contact with our guest right now. So we're going to go to commercial break for our listeners, and we'll come back in 2 and 2, and we're going to try to reestablish contact with Dr. Keller.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
Hey guys, this is Andrew Caravella. Just wanted to let you know that KCAA has a new listener line for all of you that have a phone. Now you can listen to KCAA in the grocery store, in the doctor's office, or when you want to pretend you're on the phone with someone just so that creeper will leave you alone. Call 720-835-3099 today and listen to your favorite KCAA radio shows. That number again, 720-835-3099. KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no caller or listener behind.
If you're looking for a full or part-time sales position and you have radio, TV, or print media experience, KCAA has a great opportunity waiting for you that pays the highest commissions in the market. KCAA is the only station in the IE that broadcasts on 3 frequencies, so advertisers receive 3 ads for 1 low rate. This makes KCAA a must-buy for every local business. If you're interested in a sales position with us, email ceo@kcaaradio.com.
And welcome back. You are tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on a World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John, and I am your host, Father John Reid. And my guest this evening is Dr. Keller. She's a naturopathic doctor, and I apologize. We had to go a few seconds early to commercial. We're having little problems with some of the line issues on the phone. So, Dr. Keller, are you with us again?
I am here, yes. I think we're better.
Oh, you sound wonderful. That's a voice I love to hear. So so thank you. I'm sorry for the confusion on the lines there. And you were talking about, the different type of antibodies or bacteria is supposed to be in the large intestine as opposed to the small intestines. And that's important stuff. Now, what kind of things would be referred to you? Let's say someone comes to me for help, and I think that their problems would be best addressed by a naturopath. What kind of things should I look for?
Sure. Well, it depends on, let's say, if we're talking about the digestive health. Okay. I think that, or in any type of naturopathic, you want to find somebody who aligns with background, and I just go over this. Medical doctors are trained in medications that are prescriptions of the pharmaceutical. Okay. We are trained in the pharmaceutical board exam. We are trained. We have to know 200 pharmaceutical medications.
Okay.
For our board exam, we also have to know those same medications, and we also have to know 200 botanical or herbal medications.
Oh, okay.
And the interactions with the pharmaceutical medication. Then
right.
We also have to sit for our board exam and know 200 homeopathic remedies.
Okay.
Now, homeopathy is a whole other, some people can be trained in specifically classical homeopathy. So for some people that might resonate with them. That's really great, for example, in children. Now, these are the little, I don't know if you know of them, they're little small white pellets even that can be placed underneath somebody's tongue. These are often used in India. It's very common to be used, even in the hospital system. So again, I have dabbled in that. I sat for my board exams and knew 200 remedies that I needed to know, but what I call myself a homeopath, no. But there are naturopaths who choose to get more training in classical homeopathy. So I just wanted to clarify.
Now, for my listeners who don't know what homeopathy is, could you give them kind of a cursory idea so that they know what you're talking about?
Sure. I will say that this is something where when people recognize that something created a disease in someone, or go back to when people would put the pen in their mouth for ink.
Right.
They actually recognized that then became, people got symptoms from that. And so let's extrapolate that. And they actually started taking a teeny tiny, or what we call a drop dose of that which would make you have symptoms. Let's say poison ivy. If poison ivy is going to make you itch, a teeny tiny, very, very minute drop dose of that could actually cancel out if you ever got poison ivy.
Oh.
So you're actually saying like cancels out like, but in a very, very dilute dose. And they figured this out in the 1800s. It's fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Now, one of the things I've had to deal with, because I do have a counseling practice on the side as a medical missionary, and one of the issues that we've had to deal with is people would start taking St. John's wort, which I have nothing against, but without checking with a physician or an ND even to find out if it's going to conflict with any medications they're already taking, which I think could really be a big problem. Have you had problems with some of that, where people just go to the, let's say, Sprouts or Trader Joe's or some vitamin place and get some of these things, and they don't consider how they might interact with medications they're already taking?
Yes, that's exactly why I became a naturopath. And in fact, I'm so glad you brought up that point. St. John's wort is a very, very good example, but there are many, from fish oil to probiotics to all these things can interact. And while your medical doctor might go, I don't know, or stop taking them, their immediate reaction might just say, stop taking them. Or you might have, some lab work that comes back and they say, look, stop taking these. I've even just recently said that to a patient, please stop taking your supplements. Like, we need to let your body rest.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's very important. And I really value, that's why I spent or invested $250,000 in my education, to be passionate about educating people on this.
Sure. Now, I'm sure you get asked this all the time because it's the latest fad for treating things, which there's not a whole lot of good science out on yet. I'm just using the word yet as a you're eligible to kind of thing. CBD oil. And I know of a group of people, some people take it and they use it as an ointment on the skin. Some people take it orally for inflammation. Do you have any thoughts on the CBD treatments?
I do, but I will actually give you another interesting tidbit on naturopathy. Mm-hmm. Technically, in the state of California, I am not allowed to discuss that with people.
Oh.
So, yeah, I know. Isn't that interesting? Yet a blogger can talk about it. So I'm going to respectfully, I do have very strong opinions. I have seen, but like I actually am not allowed to talk about that right now. Stands.
I think they heard us talking about it and they started going with your phone again because your phone's going in and out again. Well, maybe on a personal basis, you and I can talk sometime, and I'd be interested in your opinions, not over the airwaves on that, because there's many views back and forth. But you're right. The program before my program is about medical marijuana, I believe, and so that's not why I was asking about it. But I was really kind of curious.
Oh no, I'm just letting you know that's how regulatory boards go. It is not containing. It's not psychoactive. I know that, but that my regulatory board says we don't even want you talking about CBD.
Wow.
That is as of January 1st.
Oh, see, I should have had you on last year.
In December, exactly. In December, I would have had a mouthful to tell you about CBD.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll talk off air one of these times because I'm very interested in that. It'll be unofficial. As a priest, I can keep your confidence.
Yes, you can.
So, yeah, and a lot of things are... Now, does an ND also prescribe?
Yes, absolutely. Again, licensure, so I had a license in Oregon. This is what's unique for naturopaths. In the state of Oregon, I had my DEA license, and I could prescribe all drugs that were within my scope of practice, which is pretty extensive.
Okay.
Let's say your standard general practitioner who you would go to. When I moved my practice to Los Angeles, I then needed to have a medical doctor to oversee my prescriptions for prescribing anything other than hormones. So in Oregon, I have a DEA license. I can prescribe and all I wanted to prescribe was testosterone, even in the state of California, thinking, oh, that's a hormone. Oh, no. I have to have a medical doctor oversee my prescribing for testosterone, even.
Wow. I see. I didn't know that. And I know that we're both California and New York are the strictest states for medical licenses, where you're nursing, physician, any of the medical practices, and you're considered a medical practice. So that's really something else. I was really shocked to hear that, to be honest with you, because I figured your education is so extensive that I would figure it wouldn't be much of an issue. So I'm glad you told me that. It educates me a little bit, because quite often I tell people when they're having things that their physician just can't get a finger on, that they should go see a naturopath. In fact, I have a couple, I'm going to be doing their wedding in a couple months, and they were trying to get me set up to see a naturopath for a couple things I'm dealing with. So, yeah.
Well, it's not to say that they don't have a medical doctor overseeing them. My first 2 years here in LA, I had a medical doctor and so it was, I was writing prescriptions like I normally was. And just over time, I've chosen to not have a medical doctor oversee me, and I'm choosing to use natural remedies only and botanicals, and hormones that I can prescribe. I let my DEA license, expire at the end of the year. That has just been my choice. But there are plenty of naturopaths in the state who have a medical, doctor who do oversee them, and so they can write prescriptions and wouldn't even think anything of it. But I'm just letting you know and trying to educate your listeners that I would prefer that somebody like yourself, and thank you for seeing us as equal, because we have a shortage of general practitioners right now. Mm-hmm. And we have an inequality, to be honest with you, as a naturopath. We don't have guaranteed residencies. We don't have opportunities for fellowships. So again, I went into school as an entrepreneurial mind frame.
Sure. Now, do you also deal with issues with pain, physical pain?
Oh, absolutely. Many things we can do for pain.
Mm-hmm. And that's mainly just with herbs. And I know, as I say that I have 5 or 6 listeners at the very least who are saying, yeah, I'm taking an herb for pain right now too, as they light a joint. But that's not where I'm going with it. Okay.
Well, what I would like to say is, we take a history. I have a pretty elaborate intake, so I want to know somebody's story. I want to know, where does the pain come from? And even what I will say to somebody, I say, describe it like I'm in your body. Don't just tell me it hurts. Like you need to put me in your body, and I need to be, describe it as in detail as you possibly can. And that's what I love about and respect about homeopathy, is that the more detailed you can be, the better they can isolate the remedy for you. Right. And so at the same time, there's more reasons. Maybe there's personality. Maybe there's some trauma involved. Maybe there's different layers to why that pain is. And especially if somebody has gone to conventional medicine and the standard medications haven't worked, then we definitely need to peel back the layers.
Yeah, I have a case in mind where no pain medication has really done anything for this individual. And every time I see them, they're really suffering. I mean, their pain's so bad that they literally sweat from the pain. And they've been able to get no relief. So that might be someone I might have to send to you for an evaluation to get your
possibly
input.
Well, I would love to share that there is a resource that I always send people to, and it's called the Tapping Solution.
What is it called?
And the Tapping Solution.
Okay.
And they have a documentary that I recommend people listen to or watch, and they also have many free resources. This is about acupressure points.
Oh, okay.
And so you can actually gently tap on these acupressure points. And again, the tappingsolution.com, they have free resources and videos and scripts, and I hope that this doesn't make any of your listeners feel uncomfortable with their spirituality, and I don't want to cross any lines, but they've actually done research on this about reducing cortisol levels, and it's been approved also for the military and PTSD. So, and it's absolutely amazing for children, just to say that. But the point is that we are just gently tapping on these meridian points, and you're also speaking things at that same time, and it can really, really make a change in somebody's physical. I mean, you just have to experience it to feel it, to really know. And in the documentary, my point is there was a gentleman who had suffered from 20 plus years of pain. And so when I want to see if it resonates with someone, I recommend they see that website, perhaps watch the documentary. There is also a specific book for pain relief. And again, if that's what's meant to be for that person, I hope they find some form of even I always say, even if it takes the dial down a notch on the dimmer switch, even a little bit, that's noticeable, that can be significant for someone in pain.
No, I'm somewhat familiar with the acupressure. I grew up in Chinese Kung Fu, and so we had to know about pressure points and stuff like that for the art. So you're talking to the right audience with this, because I truly believe in a lot of those. I'm also a big believer in acupuncture. In fact, back in 2011, a chiropractor broke my neck, and the only thing that gave me pain relief was acupuncture. So, and believe me, they had me on high doses of every type of pain medication, and it wasn't doing anything for the pain. And a friend of mine happened to run into me in a store and saw me sweating bullets from the pain. And his brother was an acupuncturist, and he called him right up. Turns out he was right down the street, took me right in. And after a half hour on the table, I bawled like a baby, because it was the first time in almost a year I was not in pain. So, yeah, what you're talking about is very important stuff. So, we're getting ready to come up on our next commercial break, talking about painful things. And so my guest this evening is Dr. Keller. She's a naturopathic physician, a very good piece of medicine there. And we'll be back in 2 and 2 to continue our conversation on Viewpoint with Father John.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, K292FQ Riverside, and K293CF Moreno Valley.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
Now, here's a new concept: digital network advertising, where businesses display your ad inside their building. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, your company is going to thrive with digital network advertising. Choose your marketing sites or jump on the DNA system and advertise with all participants. Your business ad or logo is rotated multiple times an hour inside local businesses where people will discover your company. Digital Network Advertising, DNA, a novel way to be seen and remembered. Digital Network Advertising with networks in Redlands and Yucaipa. Call in the 909 area 222-9293 for introductory pricing. That's 909-222-9293 for Digital Network Advertising. One last time, Digital Network Advertising, 909-222-9293.
And welcome back. You are tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reid. And as a reminder, brothers and sisters, Viewpoint with Father John is a listener-supported program. So if you would please go to www.viewpointwithfatherjohn.com, click on the support button and give what you can. For those of you who've been contributing, thank you. You are keeping us on the air, and I am really grateful for that. Again, I want to invite you to buy a copy of my book, Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me. The premise of this book is that we are all God's children, and that we do not need more self-improvement. What we need is self-discovery. When we know better, we do better. Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and other online bookstores, so please get yours today because that also helps pay for the program. And my guest this evening is Dr. Keller. She's a naturopath. She practices in the city of Los Angeles, and she sees patients both in person and also virtually. And Doctor, how do you see them virtually? What does that consist of?
Well, for example, if somebody becomes a patient, then they have to be physically seen in person in my office. And then after that, up to a year. So I have to see somebody every 12 months physically. But in the interim of that, we can do phone or, FaceTime, Skype, other video conference options.
Right. Well, last time I went to my doctor, he had a window in the door that says $50 to see the doctor, $60 if he sees you. But I'm just kidding. Nick, my engineer, is just rolling his eyes. He says, "Thank goodness this is my last show with you." Now, I know a lot of my listeners are probably wondering, does insurance cover your visits, or is it a cash per visit? How does that work?
For me, for my practice, I chose to be out of network.
Okay.
Again, I won't get into, I appreciate everything that we have in America. That's how I feel. As far as, I have Kaiser insurance, so I use my Kaiser insurance the way that I use my Kaiser insurance. But I also have an HSA plan, and I, pay for everything else out of pocket. So I have chosen to have my practice where I provide a super bill for someone. So I am a cash practice, and then I provide a super bill. And I've had some patients say that they've even been reimbursed, now it depends on their insurance carrier, up to 80%, submitting their super bill.
What is a super bill? I'm not familiar with that term.
So the super bill is really what this is, without me getting too politically involved, because I'm not involved in the insurance.
Sure.
So I'll give you an example from just hearing what we'll call water cooler talk at a recent conference I was at. So you go to your doctor, you have to have a chief complaint. The doctor has to put in certain insurance codes and or codes for labs. Everything is connected to a dot.
Right.
Is what I like to say, okay? And the doctor is even restricted to what they can and cannot do for you, what they can and cannot prescribe, because that's what insurance has said or research has said, this is the standard of care. And we need that. I respect that.
Sure.
But in my medicine, or what I like to do is I like to treat the individual. I'm going to code it the way that I actually see it. And I'm going to spend the time that I want to actually spend with that patient. And the insurance company might not agree, they might balk at that idea, right?
Sure.
However, when you do it properly, when you code it properly, and you see somebody who it's like, well, look, this person's been to the Mayo Clinic, to Johns Hopkins, whatever their story is, and I can justify via these codes, and then I can show even over a time period, well, look, they came to me with 20 of these codes. Now they only have 5 of these codes. That may even happen in 6 months.
Wow.
And they've been ill for 5-10 years. The point is that that's getting somewhere, right, in medicine. And the super bill is me placing those codes, justifying, and saying, here are the things that I'm doing, and here are the notes that support it. Here is this patient reporting back on what's, improving. Therefore, that's how I'm able to reduce or change these codes. And they find themselves, and if you think about it, we're reducing the middle people by having patients communicate directly with what they're paying for their insurance company.
Sure.
Because the runaround and the unfortunate, where we're losing, where we have hole in the boat, basically, is the runaround and the billing. And when you have, a doctor's office, it costs them up to $50,000 a year for a medical biller alone.
Right.
That's not even talking about who's answering the phone. So I think a lot of times, on one hand, people want to use their insurance, and on the other hand, I'm not having all of those administrative costs, and people are getting kind of red carpet boutique. I'm answering the phone service.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how I've chosen to run my business and how I want to run my life and my day.
No, that makes sense. Well, and in my counseling practice, I don't take insurance, even though I'm a PhD. Now, I went to the religious psychologist program, which is a whole different thing, which we are clinically trained. And in some states, the clergy actually do bill their hours, and some insurance will pay it. But in California, that's a different deal. But I give such a good rate anyhow that they wouldn't need to bring in insurance to begin with. But still, that's why I was kind of curious about, because I heard a while back when doing some stuff around the Whitaker Wellness stuff that there was some things that were billable, some that weren't. And I know chiropractic treatment has had to go through that there's some insurances that'll pay for it, some won't, and the same with acupuncture. And I don't mean to compare you to a chiropractor, no offense. I mean, they have their place, don't get me wrong, but you're a whole different thing, a whole different area of medicine. So that's good to know. Is it very expensive to see a naturopath?
Again, that ranges, because I was going to say the water cooler talk is I was listening to some naturopaths at a recent conference, and they were saying how they were just asked, get this, from an insurance company to pay the insurance company back $3,000 because the insurance company didn't agree with everything. Yeah. So, and then I've had other naturopaths who literally I've seen in the bathroom crying their eyes out because they were like, I only got paid $24 for this new patient appointment they spent 90 minutes on, and they can't even put gas in their car.
Right.
Okay. So there's a spectrum in any business, from painters to, you see what I mean? So, you can find people on a sliding fee scale. There are universities that offer options to people.
Oh, I didn't know
for
that.
Example, absolutely. We have to get our medical training. There's plenty. In Portland, Oregon, we had multiple medical centers for the community. Again, that's how I got involved in the medical relief work in Nicaragua as well, was through our community programs.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the naturopathic university, Bastyr University is in San Diego, at least for California. But then there are also, I'm sure, other, again, sliding fee options, all the way up to, say, for example, myself, I am quite an investment. I have heard that. I know that. But at the same time, I say, look, majority of the people I've seen have been to numerous specialists, and I might get 20, 50 pages worth of lab work. I might spend an hour to 2 hours before I even see that person. And when I'm just sitting with that person, I always like to say, I'm that wait staff person who you say, who doesn't write stuff down, but who brings everything out perfectly, well, I'd like to say that. But I want to not be buried in my computer is the point. So
Sure.
I'd rather somebody come in and we're having a conversation and I bring things up about them that they go, oh, wow, she did read everything. Wow, she did read everything.
Sure.
Okay. And that's how I like to establish that relationship, because I was that person. Back to how we started the conversation, I was seeking people out. I found an osteopath. I looked them up through the board, their reviews, their everything, and yet again, I mean, with all due professional courtesy and respect, I was treated like I had insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And when they couldn't find anything wrong with me, I was sent back out the door, unfortunately, with a drug, with a antidepressant.
Right.
You know, and so that's what sent me then on the journey of, you know what, I want to become the detective that figures this out for myself. So everyone that I'm coming encounter with, I am taking them on as like, I know you have sought me out. There is a reason you have found me. And
Right.
I am here to kind of, I am the light at the end of that tunnel that you might feel is a tunnel. Because unfortunately, I do also get a lot of people who are like, hey, I've spent thousands of dollars everywhere else. And, and it's like, well, I understand that. And I just don't know who has maybe looked at it the way that I have looked at all of the pieces together. I like to call myself the 4-year-old detective, because I always like to say, but why? And then I always keep looking.
That's what got me in trouble in seminary all the time. I was a kid that always had, well, why do we believe this, and why do we say it this way? And I was the one who was always getting in trouble for that. So I respect you for that. Well, those are really good things for my listeners to know about. You're talking about the antidepressants, and I know for fibromyalgia, one of the drugs that they're using is Cymbalta, which is a antidepressant. And I kind of think that that's something that gets overused quite a bit. Now, I will admit that, as a PhD, that's would be considered a layman's idea because I can't prescribe, but I feel pretty strongly about that one. I think it's way overprescribed with a lot of drugs. And I think sometimes we get doctor-induced diagnosis from overprescription. Have you seen some of that?
Yes and no. I mean, I would say that I think everything is with good intention. And the only reason I do say that is I had a unique case recently that ends up at a neurologist at Boston Mass Gen, and they end up finding out that they have what's called small fiber polyneuropathy.
Okay.
And it's very interesting because that neurologist, even after everything this person had been through, and it's just a really unbelievable story, this specialist finally was like, I know what's wrong with you. And like, she just about fell over. And so she gets this diagnosis, and then he was relaying to her, this is actually more common than people think in irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh.
And so, interestingly enough, fibromyalgia is very common in SIBO. It's a common overlapping condition, as is rheumatoid arthritis. There's a rheumatologist in the Seattle area who actually did a major study on his practice, and 80% of his practice was positive for this intestinal overgrowth. So what's interesting and kind of hot off the press, so I'm going to kind of preface this by saying this is 100% my theory. However, I'm just coming from a conference where, like I mentioned before, this food poisoning toxin that releases that cytolethal descending toxin B.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out that there's more to the story to that. And we're actually looking at studies where not only can it cross-react with that cleaning action wave of our small intestine, it can cross-react with other things in our brain, with how we absorb B12 and how we absorb another thing called acetylcholine. So these are things that are connected with, I'm bringing it back to the Cymbalta, because this small fiber polyneuropathy also uses Cymbalta.
Oh.
So my theory was, when I'm hearing them say, look, this CDTB cross-reacts with these other things, perhaps this, you see the Venn diagram, perhaps this is maybe what we're seeing in fibromyalgia, in rheumatology, in maybe even Hashimoto's. It was very fascinating. And really big into another whole separate test that will be available is an Alzheimer's connection.
Oh,
So-
that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's this whole it is part. It's interesting how you asked about the probiotics, right? Because it's like some microbe. Here it is, a bacterial toxin that is then going, I'm going to slow things down in you, and then we're going to overgrow, and we're going to cause dis-ease, or we're going to cause symptoms in this person.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So that's very good information to have. Well, this has been very helpful to my listeners, and I know it's been helpful to me personally because, again, this is one of the best kept secrets in California, and the only reason I knew about it, as I said earlier, was through contacts through the Whitaker Wellness Institute out in Newport Beach, and my superior was hooked up with them. We ran their hyperbaric chambers, and and since I learned about it, I was very fascinated. So I really appreciate you coming on the show because I think it's an important area of medicine for my listeners to be familiar with, because some of them may be able to get some help from you in addition to what they're doing with their MD or DO, either of those, or nurse practitioner. So it's good for them to have that resource. Now, if any of my listeners wanted to be in touch with you to consult with you, how would they do that?
I would say the best way is to go to my website, which is sibosolutions.com, and I offer an introductory consult, and I even, for the amount that you invest to talk to me, which is $50 for 15 minutes, I give you a $50 off code for a future appointment.
Okay.
So it ends up being a free consult, and that way we have some very scheduled time together.
Excellent. And give my listeners that website again, just in case they didn't have a pencil ready.
Sure. Yeah. sibosolution.com.
And also for some of the listeners, this is going over on YouTube, and later on this evening it'll be uploaded onto YouTube. For reference coming back, just go to Viewpoint with Father John, KCAA, on YouTube, and you can get all the last shows over the last year and a half. And so, Dr. Keller, you've been a wonderful guest, and I'm grateful for you being here. And I will personally be in touch because I have some questions that I don't want to ask on the air, and nor do I want to take advantage of you, and because I respect your craft. And so my guest this evening is Dr. Melanie Keller. She's a naturopath, and just want to talk to the listeners about a few things. And Doctor, I'll be in touch again. And thank you so much for being here tonight. Couple things on a personal basis. I want to say a few words of gratitude to Nick, who is leaving our show this evening. He's helping to train Frank on how crazy this host is, and so. Nick, thank you for all your service. You've been wonderful, and this show just wouldn't be the same without you, and you're going to be greatly missed. And Frank, I'm watching you because I have Nick's phone number, and we're friends on Facebook. So
Pressure's on.
The pressure's on. It's on. And I want to give a thanks to Gabby, who gets me here all the time, our executive producer and head engineer wife. She takes care of all my brain stuff to make sure I'm smart enough to come up on the air. And then she gives me the shake of the finger if I'm not doing well. And for all of you who listen every week, thank you for tuning in to Viewpoint with Father John. I do appreciate you spending time with us. And if no one's told you this week that they love you, let me be the first. And we'll be back again next week. God bless.
KCAA Loma Linda. Listen on 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM. Are you determined to lose a few inches around the belly area, but you can't seem to get it done regardless of how much you exercise? Now there is a safe and easy way to use a topical gel called TC1 Gel that can help. It's a thermogenic gel that you rub on your waist 15 minutes before exercising. Then simply put on the TC1 sweat belt and start your workout. You'll sweat like crazy and feel the fat burning away. TC1 Gel boosts circulation, increases perspiration, and activates body heat to burn off